Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn webinar, Dimension Management, Getting the Most Out of Dynamics NAV, brought to you by Archer Point and Dynamics NAV Addons. Dimensions are a wonderfully useful tool within Dynamics NAV. That is, until you make a mistake. Then dimensions can be frustrating. However, Dynamics NAV Addons has created a tool for all of us mistake makers, the Dimension Management Add-on. With this add-on, you can add or change dimensions on either posted transactions or posted documents. This is especially helpful if you forget a dimension or assign the wrong dimension. You can update any transaction with new or updated dimensions without going through the long and somewhat tedious process of reversing the transaction or document and making a new corrected one. Our speaker today is Bob Cole, Managing Director at Dynamics NAV Addons, which is an award-winning global developer for add-ons and utilities for Microsoft Dynamics NAV. They've been working with Dynamics NAV and Navision since 1995. In addition to having products which appeal to a broad audience, special care is given so that all of their software products are easy to sell, buy, install, use, and support. In today's webinar, Bob will demonstrate how to use the Dimension Management add-on. He'll show us how easy it is to create an audit trail so you can keep track of all changes made, add a dimension to a customer, item, or vendor, then update the historical ledger entries, and more. So let's go ahead and get started. Bob, over to you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. I really appreciate the opportunity to go through this. Suzanne and I were talking about this earlier, and I mentioned that to my knowledge there is nothing else like this in the world, and we have sold this all over the world. So it's very, very simple to use. There are several different ways you can use it, but I'm going to start with the simplest. If we go into posted documents and we bring up a posted sales invoice, this, by the way, is NAV 2017. It is available for earlier versions as well. So we'll take a look. We'll bring up a, we'll bring up a John Haddock Insurance Company, and we'll open up posted sales invoice. And the first thing I want to do is take a look and see what the dimensions are that when this was posted through originally. So we take a look and we see that area is the North European Business Group, customer group, department. Since this is the NAV demo database, department and project are the two global dimensions, and it seems that a project code was not assigned when this was originally posted. Now I can change any of these dimensions to be anything else that you have set up, or I can add a dimension. So I'm going to add a project code. First we go to Actions and Navigate, which of course puts Navigate under Actions rather than under Navigate. Not sure I understand why that is, but that's Microsoft for you. So we navigate on the posted document, and you can see all of these entries were created when the document was originally posted. Now when we make the change, we're going to update the dimensions for every single entry that's listed in this screen. So if it's in this screen, the dimensions will be updated. Now we just looked at the posted document to see what the dimensions were, and the dimension for project code didn't exist. So we go to Actions, and we've added in a function that says Change Dimension. So we open up Change Dimension, and we select which dimension we want to change. We'll change the project code, and what dimension do we want to add to this? So we'll make this a Mercedes. Okay. Now, if this was changing a dimension that already was posted, you'd see the original dimension value in this window. So I click OK, and it's done. So if I now go back to the posted sales invoice, I will see those entries. If I go to the GL entry table and we say Show Related Entries, you will see that the project code now exists for Mercedes, which wasn't there a minute ago. Now, one of the changes, this is the GL entry table. one of the changes that we found was very, very helpful is that we've added all of the extended dimensions to make them visible in the GL entry table. Okay, so that you can see what all the dimensions are in the GL entry table, which from NAV only displays the department and the two global dimensions. You don't get to see all of the extended dimensions unless you have our add-on. So that's the simplest usage is go to any document and go to change dimension. Now, let's say, for example, that somebody, a supervisor, says, could you please enter the project code for this invoice, and the person does it. The assistant does it. And then the supervisor comes back and says, oh my goodness, I told you to add it to the wrong one. Now what do we do? So then we go into Dimension Management History, and this will show you who changed the dimensions, when they changed it, what the new code was, what the old code was. So we see down here, and each entry that got changed. So here's the old code, which was blank. There's the new code. And if they made a mistake, you can click on Undo Dimensions, and it makes a reversing entry. And now, let's show related entries. Now it's put back the way it was. Project code is blank. So that's the way that the transaction was before we made the change. We made the change. Now we found that it was made in error, and we undid the change. So we keep a log of all of the changes that have been made in a table, which if we go into departments, we've added in a section that says Dimension Manager. And there's a Dimension Management History, which will show you a list of all of the entries that have been made, who made them, when they made them. So if you need to go back and find, you can't remember which one, you know that it was Mary that made the change, and you know about when she did it, that you can go in and filter this list to find the one you want to change, and you can from here navigate on it and undo it. We're going to take a look at a couple of the setup things in a little bit. Now, that's fine if you want to make a change one by one. Excuse me, I picked up a cold over the last weekend. Then we had the request. They said, well, that's fine, adding a dimension to a single entry, but what if I have 1,000 entries and I want to make a change? How do I do that? So let's go to the posted documents and go back here, and let's filter on all entries that have a currency code of euro. All of these entries will be updated if I now go to Actions and Batch Navigate Change Dimension. So Batch Navigate indicates that it's going to perform the navigate function on each of these one by one and change all of the related entries. And we stress this because there's another way we can do it when you start going into the ledger tables, that we've had several people request that they're trying to clean up just their financial statements, and they only want to make changes to individual entries in the GL entry table or some other ledger. So if we now go batch change this entry and we put in project, because none of these had a project code, and we say, well, we're going to put in Toyota. I don't know how many people remember the Toyota Supra. I owned one many years ago. And so now it's changing all of the entries. Let's just take a look and see if it did. I haven't tested this for a long time. So let's go in and see in the there's the Toyota project code entry, Toyota Supra. It was entered. If we navigate on this, let's open this up. let's open the entry and navigate on it. And let's look at the GL entry table, show related entries. And in fact, Toyota was added to the project code, which it didn't have a project code before. So the object of this is that you can change an individual entry. You can change a filtered list of entries, and this works on posted sale. It works on any document, any posted document that you have. It'll also work on, let's go back out of here and go to departments, and let's go to a customer. And we'll bring up the Canon group. And we're going to drill into the, let me move things around here on 2017. Let's see, there we go, outstanding orders, balance. Let's drill into the outstanding balance, and let's say open equals no. I think this is all of the entries. Okay, so now at this point I can, similar to a posted document, I can drill into the customer ledger entries and go to actions, and I can either change this one entry or batch change all of these entries or a filtered list. So if I want to filter this list by date and I use batch change, it will change all of the entries that are in this screen. If I use change dimension, it will change only this one. And again, if we do make this change, let's take a look and see what the dimensions were for this. So let's take a look at dimensions. Let's change the department from sales to administration. And in this case, we're going to do just this one entry. So we're going to say the department code, we're going to change. And you remember I said that it would show you what the department code was. And I want to change it to administration. So now this one has been updated. And we'll take a look at the dimensions. So what used to be sales is now administration. And this is on the customer ledger entry. Now, if we navigate on this, it will show that all of the associated entries were updated also. So this has all been changed to sales. So when you use the change function, it will act as if it navigated on it, and it will change all related entries. On the other hand, you can make a change just to a specific ledger entry. Let's take a look at how, let's go back in here and say, again, we go into Dimension Management History, and it says, this is what we changed, and we undo it, and now it goes back to the way it was. It's back to sales. So we had several people who wanted to go in and make changes to the GL entry table. Let's go into GL entry table, into financial management and the general ledger, and we get into the chart of accounts. And once we get into the chart of accounts, well, let's pick one that usually has a pretty good sales of let's take a look at this one. Nope, that one has no balance. There, this one's got a balance. Now, when these are posted, we ran into a problem making changes because when a lot of these entries are posted, they're posted along with a register that is all linked together. We've made it specific so that you can, if you want, you can say, I want to change that one and that one and that one, or any, or a batch, or a filtered list. And it will either change the individual dimensions of the one we selected or batch change all of what we've selected. But when we make the change here, we're going to change only the ledger entries and not act as if we navigated on it. If you want to do that, if you want to act as then what you would do is navigate on this entry and then change the dimensions, and this will change everything that's related to that entry. If you change it from here, you're going to change only the GL entry, okay? Because we had lots and lots of people, particularly in Europe, who want to change only the GL entries in order to be able to fix their financial statements. Which brings up an interesting point. Changing dimensions frequently will affect changing the dimension, the financial statements, because financial statements will almost always use dimension values as data tags for filtering and sorting. So what we did, we had somebody that came out and said, how can we prevent people from making changes in closed periods? If you happen to be a public corporation, changing your financials, changing the dimensions which affect the financials is kind of frowned on once you've published your 510, your 10Ks and 10Qs. So what we did was gave people the ability to control that. If we go into administration and go into dimension management setup, there are a couple. First thing we have to do is enable the fact that we're going to store history. When we originally built this, we didn't have the history table, but we were quickly informed that if we did not have an audit trail for these changes, nobody was ever going to risk using it. So then what we did was he said exclude closed periods. But NAV, closing a period in NAV is a soft close, and it doesn't actually close anything. And you don't close month by month, you'll close in years. So then what we said is enable posting date check for the user that is going to make the change. So if the user has been set up with a posting date range that says, for example, we're going to allow this user to post from February 1st to February 28th, then the program will check to see that the date of the document that's being changed is within their posting date range, and if it is, it will allow it, and if it isn't, it will error and it will throw a message that says you're trying to make a change outside of your allowed posting date range. Theoretically, somebody at the top of the ladder has the ability to control the user date range posting capability, and if they wanted to, they could change their own or somebody's specific user's posting date range, because theoretically that person knows what the implications are of doing that. And once you've opened up the posting date range and you try to make this change, it will allow it. So this is the most restrictive and the highest level of protection, which is that it only allows making changes, dimension changes, to transactions within the user's posting date range. Now, we also expected that there was going to be a lot of changes. The people purchasing this tool purchase it because dimensions, as Suzanne said, dimensions are a wonderful thing until you make a mistake, and frequently the people that are charged with posting documents really don't understand the importance of making sure that dimensions are correct until the vice president of sales comes down and says, this report can't possibly be right. So what we did was put an ability to say, see how long do we want to keep that history that I opened up, the history table. How long do we want to keep that data? Do we want to keep it for 3 months, 6 months, however many days you want to keep it, and the system will automatically drop off entries that are older than however many days. So if you put 180 days, then entries auto purge is enabled for 180 days. So at this, if you set this up, then at 181 days, the oldest entries will automatically drop off to prevent this table from getting too big. Nothing says that you have to put an entry in there. You don't. The only thing that you do have to do is check Enable Dimension Management History if you want to have this history table. So we had several other questions. One of the questions was, how does this affect analysis view reports? So analysis views are data cubes, as you probably all know, that are created and then updated periodically, nightly in some cases, and what the system does is it simply looks for additional entries and adds the additional entries to the data cube. What it does not do, it does not go back and check to see if any of the data was changed. So if you make a change in a document or ledger entry that is older than that has already been entered in the analysis views cube, then you need to go into the analysis views and you need to be able to have the system delete the analysis view and rebuild it. And this is analysis view batch jobs allows you to be able to go in and set this up as in job queues so that you can run this periodically to update to automatically delete and rebuild your analysis views, and you can set it up as to which analysis views are going to be deleted and rebuilt. But in order to be able to pick up any changes that Dimension Manager has made, you must delete and rebuild the analysis views, and that's usually done in the middle of the night, just because it takes it'll take a couple hours to do it. So one other thing came up, and we had several people that were requesting this early on, and initially we said that it couldn't be done. Well, we were wrong, because what people were asking for was they were asking to be able to change dimensions to the line at the line level. And I'm going to minimize because what I've done is I have posted 3 orders that are all identical, same items, same things. The only difference is that on this first order, all of the dimensions are the same. Now, what NAV does, if the dimensions are the same for all of the lines or any combination of the lines, what NAV does is that they go to and navigate, and we're going to look at the GL entry table and show related entries. Okay, so this is the third one I actually wanted to show. Let's go. Yeah, let's start with this one. This one was posted with all 3 lines having the same dimensions. So we go into navigate, and you'll see that the GL entry, there's 5 GL entries for this posting. Let's show the related entries, and you'll see that all of the sales lines were posted in summary. Now, the Dimension Manager does not create new GL entry lines. We are not going to create, that would really mess things up. We will allow you to change anything that NAV has already created. So in this case, all 3 of these lines in the GL entry table were summarized into a single line. And if you go into change line dimensions, and all 3 lines were originally posted in summary, you'll get an error message. It says you cannot change line dimensions for this document because all lines have the same dimension values. Now, the second example, exactly the same entries, but what I did was posted these two, these two have the same dimensions and this one has different dimensions. Okay? So if I try to change this dimension, let's go into actions, line level dimensions. It says if you continue, the dimension value for other lines will also be changed. Do you want to continue? So this, if we make a change to this line will also be affected because these 2 lines were posted in summary and this line was posted separately. Now we've subsequently found out that that if you use different posting groups for these lines, that will cause them to also be posted separately. But if the posting group is the same for all of these and they were posted with the same dimensions, you'll get that error message, whereas if you try to change the dimensions for this line, it will allow it. Okay? Now, the third example is where I initially posted all 3 of these with different dimensions. Now, the only requirement is that the line be posted separately in the GL entry table. You can change any of the dimensions once they have a separate entry. So if I go in and take a look at the 3 lines, well, let's take a look at this one, show related entries, you will be able to see that the department for each of these, I put sales, production, and administration in the department code. However, I can change any of these other dimensions as long as these were not posted in summary. So that's the only restriction about changing line level dimensions. So we've covered changing a single document by navigating on it, batch changing multiple documents by bringing up a filtered list, going into the ledger entries and changing either a single customer ledger entry or vendor ledger entry, or item ledger entry or any other ledger entry, or batch changing multiple entries, going into the GL entry table and changing just the GL entry, or navigating on it and changing all related entries. So all of these came about as a result of different people around the world wanting to know, wanting to do these different functions. So we take very seriously all of the requests that people make, because just about the time we think we've thought of everything, it seems that we haven't. So that's Dimension Manager. At this point, I guess I can open it up for questions, Suzanne.
All right, thanks, Bob. We've had quite a few, and I've tried to answer most.
I'm not surprised.
We've answered most of them. So I don't know that you necessarily need to go show again, but we'll start at the top. Beth asked, she said most of their invoices have several lines. This is what you just showed, and each line has a different dimension. Can you change the dimensions on just a line of an invoice?
So the answer to that, as I just showed, is yes. As long as the lines were posted in the GL entry table individually, then we will allow you to change them. And we don't care if they were posted because the dimensions were originally different or because they had different posting groups, which also causes GL entry lines to be posted separately. Now, I had one customer who had done a modification to their system that allowed all of the lines to be posted separately even when they had the same posting group and they had the same dimensions. So the requirement really is is the line posted separately? Otherwise, you're going to get an error message that either you can't change the lines or you're going to change more than you thought.
Okay, great. Second question, how much is the add-on?
We normally sell, in fact, we try to exclusively sell this through our NAV partners around the world. And there's two reasons for that. And so the answer to the question is that we really want you to contact your NAV partner and ask them for the pricing. One of the reasons that we require this is that since this is built inside of NAV and it's using our own assigned special object series numbers, they have to be added to your NAV license. So your NAV license needs to be updated and only your NAV partner can do that. I can't. Which brings up an interesting next question, which I'm not sure if anybody asked, is that in order to be able to update your NAV license, you must be current with your Microsoft enhancement agreement. If you're not current with Microsoft, Microsoft won't allow you to add anything to your license. And unfortunately, there's just nothing we can do about that.
Yeah, so that's your maintenance plan, folks.
Yes.
All right, thanks,
yes.
Bob, for that tidbit of information as well. Next question, Francisco wants to confirm that if he changed a dimension on a posted purchase invoice header, he's assuming that it will hit the posted purchase line as well as the GL entries.
That's correct. It will hit everything. If you navigate on a document, it will update the header and all the lines. The only way that you can update the lines is if you go into the specific line and say, I want to update just this line. So yes, it will update all of the lines and all of the related entries. If you use the methodology that it was originally designed for, which is navigate on the document and change it.
All right, next question comes from Crystal. What happens when the GL account has dimension rules on it?
Good question. We have this a lot. We do not respect rules. And the reason we don't respect rules is because if you have a rule set up, then the program will have already posted the entries according to the rules. So the fact that you're trying to make a change means that this particular invoice should not be following the dimension rules that you have set up. So we allow you to change anything you want regardless of the rules that have been set up. Specifically, and that was intentionally. That was not an accident. We intentionally did it that way because if we followed the rules when they were originally set up, you wouldn't be changing the dimensions.
Great, thank you, Bob. All right, Joanne asks, when consolidating companies, would these dimension changes automatically flow into the consolidated company, or would they have to reconsolidate the company in order to pull in the dimension changes?
If you consolidate the company, if you make the change before the consolidation, excuse me, if you make the change before the consolidation, then the updated entries will flow into the consolidation. The consolidation doesn't know what the dimensions were supposed to be before you change them. So it will flow in unless you have rules set up that disallow it, in which case you'll have to go into the consolidation company and make the change there, but you can batch change all of the entries. If you can identify the source company and the source document types or the filter on the dimensions, then you can quickly identify anything that needs to be changed. So I guess I would make the change before the consolidation and then verify it once the consolidation has occurred to see if anything additional needs to be done.
So then if it's already been consolidated, they would have to make the changes and reconsolidate, right?
I've never tested it with consolidations, okay, but I can't imagine that when you do a consolidation, it's going to bring in the entries as they're posted in the unconsolidated company. So you bring in the consolidation, and it will bring in the entries as they were unless you've got some kind of a program that automatically updates things. And if that's the case, then you probably should make the changes after the consolidation.
Okay, great. All right, Rochelle asks, what exactly does purging the history accomplish? Are you simply no longer able to view the changes made?
Yes, and undo them. Because in order to undo a change, you have to be able to open up that screen, this history screen. So here's a change. We want to view the change. Here's a history entry. It says on this date, on this time, this user made these changes, and these what the users were, and this is where the undo function is. So the undo function is going to make an additional entry that moves the new value back to the old value. So if I hit undo, this entry would be changed back to the old value. If this history entry is dropped off because of the purge data, then you'll no longer be able to open it because it isn't there, and you won't be able to undo it. It doesn't affect the changes that you made. The changes that you made are permanent unless you undo them.
All right. Let's see here. Next question. Paula wants to know where to find detailed information for purchasing, and I think we'll just send you an email to follow up after our session today, Paula, so look for something.
Absolutely, yeah, just again, contact your NAV partner. You can see it's kind of a lighter version of this that we went into pretty good depth in this webinar and had a lot of questions that were answered. But if you go to our website on www.dynamicsnavaddons.com, you can see a list of our add-ons and short demo movies that go over a lot of this. We went into quite a bit more depth than what's in the demo movie, but that's you can get in contact with me either through the website or have your NAV partner get in touch with me. I've worked with companies all over the world, and although not everybody knows me, a lot of people do.
Great. Hey, I think that's all we have as far as questions go right now. We already talked about selling outside of North America. Yes, that is possible, and that you pretty much run on any version of NAV, right? I mean, you go back quite a ways.
We go back to right now, our current changes go back to 4.0 SP3 and all of the versions in between. NAV does not make it easy with the cumulative updates that come out every month for every version from 2013 on. So it causes trouble. Thank you, Microsoft. But I will tell you that we've sold this in South Africa, Romania, Poland, Sweden, the UK, Australia. There is nothing else in the world like it. And if there's anybody listening from Germany, I have the field names translated into German and French.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you for the informative session today, Bob. Thank you, audience, for your questions. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I do appreciate you spending time with us today. Hope you consider it time well spent. And we ask you that to submit any topics you'd like covered, add-ons, or just general NAV topics, or any other general topics that you would like us to cover in future Lunch and Learn webinars to info@archerpoint.com. Again, that's info@archerpoint.com. I thank everybody for their time today, and this concludes today's session. Hope you have a great rest of your day, everyone.